The next question is, who impacted or influenced you to have a career in music?
I guess, playing in bands since, I was, 15, I was playing in bands with other people, and then the more shows that you play and the more you do, you're always reaching for the next, a bigger show where, you end up having bands that you're friends with that maybe they get slightly more successful, and then you're chasing that. You end up knowing and playing with so many people that you realize, at some point, I would realize there's not much of a difference between, me and this band whose CD that I love to listen to.
Yeah.
There'll be bands that you look up to. When I was real young and playing, I think it might have been, I was either 15 or 16. I played a show with the band that I always practiced drums along to and that I idolized.
That's awesome.
And when I played a show with them, I realized, wow, the musicians were unbelievable, but it seemed like it was still something that was attainable.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't different people. This guy was a drummer that I idolized, and it seemed like this guy's amazing, and I can be my own version of that, and it doesn't seem like it's unattainable.
Yeah.
And that was always.
And you said you were 15 really, when that happened?
Yeah, I was 15 or 16.
That's sweet.
And so I'm playing along to music, and then I see a drummer, and I see that, I don't know, I guess it was the reality that my level of playing could compete with other people that I had looked up to and that I admired, and that if I was in the right band or spent enough time practicing or trying to get better, that maybe I could be at that level.
So,
Yeah,
you could really reach anything as long as you.
Yeah, and that's something about me with music is I've played it so long that nothing seems too complicated, but I realize you can't I can't play every style of music in the world and be great at it.
Mm-hmm.
But the things that I gravitate toward and the style of music that I enjoy, I could play that extremely well. I might not be able to play jazz as well as I could rock. There's so many different types of music, but I was always seeking to find my own voice and my own style that I gravitated toward. And then once I started to develop that, I realized, I was chasing the goal of being better all the time. And if the end result was someone would pay me to keep doing that, or if I could do that as a job or as a career, then, money wasn't the goal. It was self-improvement as a musician.
Mm-hmm.
It was trying to, reach the level of playing that other people were at that I admired. And if you're doing that and while you're doing that, you can find a career in it, it's amazing.
Yeah. So, what different bands have you played in? I know you've played in a few, haven't you? Throughout your years.
Yeah, man, it's when you play for a long time. There's so many different just people or bands. It's the first band I was ever in was called Oversight, and that's when I was 15. And then when I was 16 and 17 and 18, there was a band called Severance that I was in. And then 19 and 20, 21, I was in a band called Vessel.
I didn't even realize how many you were in.
Yeah, Vessel was we played a concert called Cornerstone in Illinois, and it was amazing. And that band was signed to a real small label out of Pittsburgh. And then around 2000, I lived in North Carolina for a little bit. I played for a church down there. And then when I came home, I went straight on tour with the band called Vessel. And then in the recent years, I've played with sometimes 3 bands at one time. Just because I'm so hungry to play, different styles of music and reach out there. And I know so many musicians at this point that someone will need a drummer for a couple shows, or I played on an album with a friend that did some recording, and then he has a friend that comes up, Charlene Ava, and she did some shows, and I learned her music and played 2 shows with her, and one of them was out of town, so it just never ends. Recently, it's always Modern Life if we play a show,
Mm-hmm.
we just played a little bit a couple days ago, but a band called Pictora. I think they have songs on iTunes. But especially when you're a drummer, you don't have as a creative as a voice as like a singer does.
Yeah.
You know, like a singer's very if a band swapped singers, you would tell right away. You know, like if Steven Tyler from Aerosmith sang for a different band and someone sang for him, you'd know right away that doesn't sound like Aerosmith.
Yeah.
But the drum could change, and you might not ever notice.
Yeah, you're versatile.
Yeah, so a lot of drummers that I look up to record for, they might record like 20 different albums this year that have #1 singles, but the actual drummer in the band isn't the guy that recorded. There's a guy that gets paid just to record.
That's crazy.
So, like the guy that recorded for Evanescence and Three Doors Down and Good Charlotte and Avril Lavigne, like that drummer, his name's Josh Freese, and he doesn't go on tour with those bands. No one knows that he's the drummer, but he's the guy that was in the studio recording everything.
So that makes sense. So it's different. The ones with performances and the ones that are recording. I never even thought about that.
Yeah, and then what you usually have is drummers that play live that aren't nearly as good as the guy that recorded the album. The guy on the album was the absolute most professional, amazing drummer. Or guys like Travis Barker will record for the Black Eyed Peas, and he'll play for a lot of different other bands, and no one will really notice that the attention will be on the band, not so much the drummer. Yeah. So when you are a drummer that's versatile, I can play for a whole bunch of different people. I might never be on their album, or there might be people that I have recorded for that no one will ever know that I played it, But yeah, if you're a decent drummer and you know enough musicians, you just end up kind of playing for everybody.
That makes sense. So how do you handle any mistakes during a performance?
It's real hard to make a mistake.
Really?
It's hard in a musical way for drumming. To make a mistake, because the biggest part of drumming is timekeeping. So, I guess the way I would address a mistake is to turn it into something that would never obviously be a mistake.
Okay.
So, it would, as a drummer, it'd be hard to play and make a mistake unless you, say you thought there was a change happening in the song, so you started to play as if you're kind of foreshadowing what's about to happen, and then say maybe the next step of the music doesn't happen yet, and maybe you thought it was going to come too soon. You just have to keep playing and turn it back into something that musically makes sense. If there's a mistake, you never let it be obvious, and you never visually or emotionally react to it.
Okay, so you don't get nervous.
If you're playing and there's you never give away. You have to keep a good poker face. And if you're playing and something doesn't go the way a lot of times it's hard to tell if a drummer does something that stands out. It's hard to tell if someone else made the mistake or if he made it.
Okay.
I played songs wrong before, and then we just kind of went with it and tried to cover up the mistake by keeping it musical and keeping it in the context and not making it obvious. And when the song's over, someone approached me and said, "I can't believe I missed that part." And then I have to say, "I thought it was me that played it wrong." And they're like, "Well, when you did that, I thought I played it wrong."
Yeah.
So if you're in the audience and one of the band members changes something about the song, it's hard to tell. If you're good about it, it's hard to tell if there was ever a mistake or not.
Okay.
Someone said that Jimi Hendrix never played a wrong note. He would just bend the string till it was the right note.
Right.
And that's kind of like the mindset is as a drummer, if something happens that's unexpected or you think the song's going somewhere else, you just have to roll with it. But most of the time, you're watching the body language of the other musicians around you, and you can kind of pick up on, is the music about to change, or am I going to move too early? You just kind of read the body language of the musicians you're playing with, and usually things go pretty good.
Awesome. Okay, so as far as your performances, how long do they last? And are you usually tired after, or do you have this sense of a high, you're all right, I'm ready to do more?
It depends on the music. The music. If I'm playing music that's very physical and aggressive, I might be playing very physically, and the first or second song into it, I might feel like I'm about to die, and then you push through it, And by the end of the show, I mean, you could be just completely exhausted. You know, like you can't even take your drum set apart. You're just completely physically exhausted. But if I'm playing like normal rock and roll, you know, for drumming, volume is created by your motion.
Okay.
So if I'm playing quietly, I'm not really physically moving a whole lot.
Yeah.
You know? So if I'm playing, you know, it depends on the style of music. I could play, you know, jazz or rock, and at the end of it, it seems like I never played music.
Mm-hmm.
But if I play something that's very physical and aggressive and loud, it can be very, very exhausting. And it can be a challenge just to try to get through the set. And sometimes you might physically have something that you want to play or that you're used to playing, and you're so tired that you have to compensate on the spot and like improvise it and play it a little bit differently because you're just too tired.
Yeah.
You know, but
depends on the music.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last question is, what advice would you give to anyone who is nervous about starting to play music, like they don't think that they're capable of like reaching this level or they'll be judged for it? What advice would you give to anyone that's thinking about it?
Primarily, you have to have fun with whatever you're doing.
Okay.
You know, and if it's hard to approach drums, like if it was, for example, drum set, if you're not enjoying it, it's going to be hard. And if you set goals that are too high and it's hard to reach them, you're going to be discouraged. So, I mean, with any musician, the best thing you can do is find a way to enjoy the space that you're playing that music.